Hello, I'm Kirby. I'm a speech and language pathologist and I form part of the willingness team. And today I'll be discussing language milestones children go through when they're acquiring language. I'll be going through the main milestones between 0 to 5 years. So during the first year of life, children first start communicating by cooing and by crying to indicate different needs. So they cry when they're hungry or when they're in pain, and they are trying to communicate their basic needs to an adult. Then they go through a stage of babbling whereby they start combining few words together. So they start using words such as ma, bi, pi, for example, and they start learning and become exposed to different sounds, and they start using them to enhance their communication a bit further. And then they also learn certain skills such as pointing to an object and learning how to label it eventually. So they may start pointing towards an object and they might need an adult to explain to them what the object really is, and then they start learning how to label it on their own. They also start to show us when they're happy and when they're sad using different facial expressions. And towards 1 year they start developing single words. These are usually words which are most functional to them, so words which will help them meet a need or a want, so such as for example milk or cookie or mummy, for example, and they start using these basic words which are close to them in their environment. Then they started around the same age they started to walk, and this gives them an opportunity to explore further their environment, so that they can walk around in different rooms in the house, for example, and this gives them an opportunity to learn a lot of language. So it's at this age that we start seeing that the vocabulary expands, and at around 1.5 to 2 years they start developing the ability to combine words together by using short phrases. And usually observe that the first phrases would still be reflecting their basic needs, but they, for example, can refer to an adult. So, for example, mommy cookie or daddy milk, for example, and they can request using that short phrase. Then, if we had to go up to 3 years and even 4 years, 5 years, language starts becoming more complex. We start observing that the child sentence is now getting longer, and we usually compare that, for example, at around the age of 3 years, the child would have developed a 3-word utterance, for example. So we can use the age as a guideline for the length of the utterance they're using. And at around 4 years to 5 years, we can start observing that the child can narrate a story, they can ask questions, they can tell you where they've been with their mom, for example, or with their dad, and they can describe further. We also observe that they use different language concepts, so they can locate an object, so it's on the chair, under the table, and they can also speak to an adult about an experience which happened to them in the past. And this helps them also to enrich their interaction with peers. And we also observe that even in the early stages of language development, social interaction helps the child a lot to gain more complex language use. And this keeps on developing, obviously, during the school years. As the child is growing older, they're always learning more vocabulary and learning new skills. So that's the end of the language milestones the children go through between 0 to 5 years.